of November 16th. We have an agenda in front of us. And for those in Zoom, I'm hearing myself through a second speaker, so I know what all of you are listening to. We have an agenda in front of us. I do not, sorry, before, any conflict issues, any declarations of conflict? Okay, I'll call the meeting to order, and the agenda does not need an amendment. So can I have a motion to adopt? Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Okay, appointments and delegations, item or page 4 on our agenda. You have in front of you, Council, several recommendations that I'm making for various committees. I should add that we had a little bit of a glitch in producing the statement, so there are 3 others to add to the list. One is the SCREDO, Sunshine Coast Regional Economic Development Organization, where the recommendations are Councillor Shepherd and myself. Another one is the Youth Action Advisory Committee with Councillor Bell. And then we have a community investment program, and I must confess, I don't remember who stepped forward for that. If we can't remember, I think Councillor Bell, you were interested, but perhaps we'll leave that one and we'll appoint them at our next meeting. So you have in front of you the recommendation staff report for these matters. Is there any discussion? Please, Councillor Bell. Microphone, please.
There we go. I was noticing that the BC Ferry Advisory Committee is not on there. Is that no longer?
It is. It's the Southern Sunshine Coast Ferry Advisory Committee. Mm-hmm. And Councillor Inkster is nominated to be the primary person. I think in most cases it's fair to say if other members of council wish to attend many of these meetings, they're typically welcome.
Okay. Thank you.
Council, is anybody want to volunteer for more, to do more? If not, I would entertain a motion with the amendments that I've mentioned for SCREDO and for the Youth Action Advisory Committee in Councillor Bell. Moved Councillor Shepherd, second Councillor Toth. Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. We move then to item 4, the endorsement and support for the Mayor's proclamations. This is something that's always a pleasure as the Mayor to be able to do, and you have in your report the three proclamations that I've declared for the next couple of weeks. So, would Council, I suppose I should be saying, would you like to endorse some or all of the recommendations? And now entertain a motion. Councillor Toth, thank you. Please.
I will move all 3 recommendations as presented.
Great, thank you. Second, Councillor Bell. Any discussion? You would note that Nadia from the Radiation Technologist Week is here today, and it was my pleasure to present the proclamation a few minutes ago, so thank you for being here and for all you do. Is there? That would be Norm.
Oh, right.
Thank you, Norm. Thanks for being here, and we have a proclamation that I can give you after the meeting if you wish a formal hard copy. Oh, you got it. Great. Good. If I may, worship me. Great. I'd like to just thank board volunteers and a really small amount of money per year, $10 a year. You appreciate that very much. Also, your donation to help work that we do. I'd like to comment on the year of the storage program. It's not that well known in the community at large, and I think it is the future.
of how we're going to handle a lot of situations that arise in the community, where we can bring the victim and the perpetrator together in a room and find a way to reconcile and move forward instead of. So again, thank you very much, and good luck on
Great.
the meeting. And welcome back, and you too, Darren, and others, and Joanne, and after your face again. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Norm. Okay, we'll move on then. Item 5 on the agenda is the minutes of previous council meetings. First one is a little bit of an unusual one for a new council to review and adopt the agenda for a meeting that many of us did not attend. Is there any guidance that the corporate officer would like to provide to us as we just proceed?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, as you know, council is an ongoing body, regardless of, after elections, you continue to be the legal body, and council's procedure bylaw requires that minutes be adopted. So you're not approving them, you're adopting them, in essence, confirming that you did see them and they were adopted.
Thanks very much. All right, and we do have 2 members of council that were there, so Councillor Rowe will move adoption, and would Councillor Toth be okay to second it? Is there any discussion? I'm looking, Councillor McLaughlin, or, sorry, I can't see you down there. We're going to have to fix the room a little bit so we can see each other better, but, okay, if not, then I'll call the question. All in favor of adoption? Carried. And then our inaugural council meeting of November 2nd, before us for adoption. Motion, Councillor? I was there. And on time? Councillor Inkster moved. Second, Councillor Bell, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried, thank you. All right, the page 25 of our agenda, item 6.1, the report from our Deputy Corporate Officer on the Community Safety Task Force. Council is a series of recommendations with some options, should you wish, and perhaps we could start, if you're so willing, for a motion, and then we can have a discussion as needed. Okay. Motion to these are the 3 recommendations at the top.
To put the three recommendations on the table?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Well, this committee is needed, so.
Okay, a motion, thank you. We'll come back, let you speak to it in a second. Is there a seconder? Councillor Rowe, thank you. Now discussion. Councillor Inkster, did you want to?
So, thank you. We've heard from the community over the last number of months, and with some concerns, and then specifically during the campaign that we are all part of, and I think a number of us received not only information and or discussion at some of the all candidates meetings that we were at, but also, of course, through email, social media, and phone calls, that there's some issues within the community. And I know that the mayor received from me a number of concerns expressed to him over the few weeks post-election when we had the discussions. So this was your reaction to those concerns and what we were hearing, and I'm comfortable with us moving forward with this. And all I would ask is that within the discussion that we put an end date on the committee, if what reasonable end date, just within the terms of reference, and then a number of council members can be involved without further burdens of work.
Great.
And, yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions, if you could, Councillor McLaughlin, please. And
thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
I would like to know what kind of other members you would like on the committee, and why it's called a task force instead of a committee or a select committee or something like that.
Yep. Okay, I'll respond to that. I think the use of the word task force is meant to indicate what Councillor Inkster is referencing, that it is a limited time committee. One of the things, certainly personally, that I'm committed to is we need to come up with some recommendations fast. And I don't want this to be a committee that goes on for months and months and months just talking about the issues. We've got to come up with some practical solutions. So that's why part of the recommendation is that this task force would report back on January 31st or before with its first report.
So would that have the RCMP involved, or?
I think part of this would be for the task force to decide, but I can tell council that I have met with the RCMP briefly, and they are interested in participating in some capacity.
Would there be any community members?
Yes, I hope so. I know people have expressed interest. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I live in the village, and so, and I've also talked to you about my concerns.
Yeah.
But I just want to point out too that, I don't know, I mean, I wish the best of luck. I know it's a very difficult problem, and it's international, right? And it's also about income inequality and people's desperation, and I don't want us to forget that. And from what I've heard, it's about people also wanting to find community, so I hope it's done in a very sensitive and caring way. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Shepherd and then Councillor Rowe.
I think all of the councillors have seen an email from, I think it's the Downtown Business Association, with suggesting a fabulous pilot program that's taking place in Mission. And it really seems to suggest some elements that are working in that community. Obviously, they have a larger scale problem, but that's probably a good starting point for the task force.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Rowe and Councillor Ben.
Just to Councillor McLaughlin's point, well, like, bang on in how deep of a problem this is. And I think it is a select committee, and using the term task force will help to remind us that there's a task at hand. And I think from my discussion with the mayor, that's around what can we identify that is within our realm of control that we can do to make the situation better, make the community feel safer. So it's going to be really hard, really difficult not to get too far into the weeds with this, because it's so. I know. I'm sorry, Councillor Inkster. I told him to stay out of the weeds at the FCRD today, so he's having a reaction. Anyway, it is such a layered problem, and it is going to have to be dealt with in a sensitive manner, 100%. So I'm happy that we're moving forward with this, and I think there's going to be no end of help from community members to help us out with this.
Great. Councillor Bell and then Councillor Toth.
Absolutely. I agree with both Diane and Brenda. And as much as we can, there's a lot of expertise in this community. There's been a lot of good work done, but I would certainly want to see some of the subject matter experts at the table to handle this, as we say, very sensitively, and yet at the same time that we do come up with some practical solutions. As Adam has said, there is a very good program. She has, as a community member that lives in the community, she has reached out, and it's actually in Maple Ridge. And and so they have a some tremendous ideas. They've tried it, and would like to, certainly pass that on to the staff so they can take a look at that. And she has offered to be a part of the community as well. So
great.
It's
Thank you.
like an onion, this one. We have a lot of layers.
You're very apt. Good. Thank you. Councillor Toth, please.
Thank you. Totally supportive. I wish I could be involved, but I got too many other things on the go right now. I do have a question around how is it intended to solicit volunteers or members of the task force, if that's something that you've given consideration to, or if we should provide a recommendation here that we advertise, or are you waiting for the first meeting before that comes back? Thanks.
I've got 2 or 3 thoughts on it. I'd welcome if you've got some specifics to help council or help the task force, but at the moment, I think the volunteers number at least a dozen that have come forward to me. That's without talking to the rest of you on council of who might be interested to be involved. Some of the people I expect will want to come to one or maybe two meetings, express themselves, and then move on. So we're moving fast, and I guess I'd like to see us have the flexibility at the task force, perhaps after the first meeting, to check back with council at the meeting, maybe the next regular council meeting, for if we feel we need more guidance. That works, yeah. Okay. Any other comments? Okay. All right, then I'll call, it is moved and seconded, so I will call the question. All in favor of the three recommendations as listed on page whatever? Yes, thank you. Carried, thanks. We go on to Councillor Inkster wants to make a speech.
No. I know that we talked about this previously, and there will be the task force piece, but I believe there's also the discussions we will be having with the province about potentially more resources in the mental health field.
Yes, I'm sure that will come. I mean, that's not the primary focus of the task force. The task force is about resident safety. But,
but then there's that other piece,
yes,
because that's we're talking about, as Councillor McLaughlin mentioned, that there's other issues involved as well.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great.
Okay, Council, then we'll move on to item 7.1. Again, and as our corporate officer confirmed, this is the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting for receipt. Correct?
Your Worship, through you, they're actually for receipt and adoption, because there's recommendations that need to be adopted. Thank you.
Thank you, yes. Okay. So, Councillor Toth would like to move adoption, and Councillor Rowe second. Are there any questions? And this, as our corporate officer pointed out, there are recommendations in here that come forward to us as council. So if there are questions arising from these minutes, now would be a good time to raise them. Hearing and seeing none, I'll call a question. All in favor of endorsement and adoption? Carried. Thank you. Okay, we have before us then item 8.1, I won't read it all out, but property maintenance, et cetera, bylaw for number 515-10, 2022. And we have with us James Nyhouse, our building chief building official.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This amendment is intended to clarify who permitted occupants are on a property for the purposes of enforcing the property maintenance bylaw, and to require that the owner, legal tenant, or person authorized by the owner to occupy and use the property are responsible for preventing access to the property by unauthorized persons, by securing the property by means of barricades, fences, or other means depending on the specific situation. There have been recent incidents where the existing property maintenance bylaw has not been able to be enforced due to the ambiguous wording and prohibitions, and no requirement on the part of the owner, legal tenant, or other person to prevent the property from being occupied by persons not legally authorized to be on or use the property. If Council adopts the proposed bylaw amendment, the bylaw enforcement team will now have an effective tool in achieving the goal of preventing unauthorized occupation and use of a property. The fine amounts are significant and can be issued on a daily basis if the bylaw enforcement officer deems it necessary to obtain compliance or attempts to obtain voluntary compliance have failed. This bylaw is reactive in its enforcement and based on complaints received. And I can answer any questions that you may have.
Terrific, thank you. Councillor McLaughlin, please.
Is there anything recently happening that causes you to bring this forward?
We have one property in particular, private property that's being occupied by persons that are not authorized to be there. And it has been the center of a lot of attention from our bylaw enforcement officers and the RCMP. I understand that there is an alleged sexual assault that took place there, and it has caused great concern. And our efforts to get the owner to remove garbage are beginning to yield some fruit. But in my previous experience in other jurisdictions, we find that it's most effective to require an owner to prevent any access to a property by persons that are not authorized to use it. And this tool, I think, would work well in certain situations here.
So are you going to, through the chair, are you going to require everybody who has a property that may be vacant to fence it?
No, this is only reacting to bylaw complaints. It is a reactive bylaw, not a proactive bylaw.
It could be a lot of neighbors. Well, what are the fines for if they do not?
$400, and that can be $400 a day.
Mm-hmm. You think that's going to be enough to actually make a difference?
As they accumulate, I think it would stimulate an owner to do something, yes.
Perhaps for our background, you can explain that a bit more, Ms. Cahill. So the infractions can be issued every day?
Yes.
And is that practice in?
We have warned people that can be the case. It usually is, that warning is usually pretty good at getting them to move in the right direction.
Great, okay. Councillor McLaughlin, we'll come back to you in just a second. Councillor Bell, please.
So you did mention about the removal of garbage, that type of thing. Is this also removal of people?
What happens in a case like that, that becomes kind of the responsibility of the owner, you may say. We're requiring them to prevent unauthorized access to the property. Now, where there is somebody who is squatting in a house or on property, that can be enforced through the Trespass Act. So the owner then could demand the persons occupying there without permission or legal right to be there to leave. And if they don't, they can call upon the RCMP to enforce the provisions of the Trespass Act. Please.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know if this has to do with the encampment near High Tide, but I noticed at one point a lot of them had left. I rejoiced that they were found housing, et cetera. And then I told my friend, and she went and she found that they had come back. So if it's to do with that, I would suggest that fencing is not going to work. And if that's the case, it should go to the task force for them to review what they think would be appropriate. I'm not prepared to support fencing in that regard.
Okay, thanks, Councillor. So the issues are, I'm aware of others, I think, where the same sort of problem. So this is about protecting, am I right, if somebody squats on an empty piece of property that perhaps somebody who doesn't live in Sechelt, or even if they do, I guess, if there's somebody on that property, we have no ability to enforce our bylaws because it's private property.
As they are now.
Yeah.
What a community can do is somewhat limited in a way, but we have the right to require a standard of property maintenance as per the community charter. And by requiring an owner to restrict access to the property by people who would not have legal authority to be there is one of the tools that we can use.
Mm-hmm. Great. Councillor Shepherd first.
Sorry, just to clarify the situation. So the fine is to the building owner who's allowing a squatter to occupy the premises?
If they don't
take action.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Bell?
So I guess I have a sense of where this may be. And then when I mentioned earlier about people, my concern is if we do pass this bylaw, and I certainly agree we need something in the future, my concern is how we're going to deal with the problem in terms of the moving of people and where will they go. So that is something that sort of sits up here for me right now, again, in terms of the timing of this. So I just want to put that out there. I totally think we need something, as I say, in the future, but my concern is what we deal with now in some of the areas that I've seen.
Okay, thank you. I think we share that, but this is one piece of, and I think Councillor McLaughlin referenced, there's a whole lot of pieces to this bigger issue. But right now, this is to give the tools to our bylaw enforcement team to get her done. Council, any other comments? We have before us this for 3 readings, so Councillor Inkster.
Yeah, thanks. You spoke to it. We need to give them tools throughout the process of dealing with these issues, and just always hope we have the person power, because I know the composition of our bylaw enforcement to deal with some of these issues. Thank you.
All right, Council, so we have the bylaw. I believe I am, you want to, please?
Well, first of all, I'll move recommendation 1 here, that we go and give 3 readings to both these bylaws.
You've done this before. Thank you.
Maybe once or twice.
Councillor Rowe. Okay. Any further discussion on that recommendation? All in favor? Opposed? Would you like your vote recorded? Yeah. Thank you. And the motion carries. So the matter now is before us as the bylaw 522-2/2022. That enough for the record? Okay. For 3 readings, could I have a motion to, and for the new councillors, you understand we give this a reading, we can do 2 readings or indeed 3 readings on a matter of this nature, and we can do it all today if you wish or not. So first reading motion. Great, thank you. Councillor Rowe, second. Councillor Toth. That's why you're here. Okay, any discussion on first reading? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Councillor McLaughlin is opposed. And motion carries. Would you, Council, agree to give it second reading? Councillor Shepherd and seconder, Councillor Toth. Yes, please.
Comment on that?
Yes,
I just also want to comment that in the fines for different things that we're supposed to be doing, like getting building permits, there's $100 fine for not getting a building permit. And that results in a lot of things. It results in things being built not by code. It results in things being built and rented out that are not safe for people.
Yeah.
And it results in
thank you, Councillor McLaughlin. I think
assessments not being
your point
right.
is that this is a higher fee than you've seen elsewhere, a penalty.
It's a very high penalty
Okay.
compared to other things,
Right.
which are negligible,
Okay, thank you.
that are more important.
Not on the enforcement bylaw, the fines bylaw,
Yeah,
not the
yeah,
actual property
yeah.
maintenance bylaw.
Right. Thank you. Okay, so that's a very good point. So we're actually voting on the property maintenance amendment bylaw.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. We're second reading for voting, yes? Okay. You ready for the question?
Mm-hmm.
All in favor of second reading? Opposed? Councillor McLaughlin, thank you. The motion carries. And would council like to do third reading tonight? Councillor Toth moved. Is there a seconder? Councillor Rowe. Any further comments at this point? Okay. All in favor of third reading? You're okay. The motion carries with Councillor McLaughlin opposed. So then I think I'm right. We go to giving 3 readings to the bylaw notice enforcement implementation amendment bylaw 515-10/2022. So this, council, is, where we get into the actual amounts of the penalties. As you will see on, my computer doesn't want to show me the page numbers, but, I believe pages. See the page. Okay. Down further.
Oh,
Yeah, 45.
Yeah, I think that's, and onwards.
oh, I see what you're
No, no. It'd probably be 60 and 61, yeah. So this, Councillor McLaughlin, is to Councillor McLaughlin's, point, which in terms of this conversation and this topic, it's about the amount of the penalties. And Councillor McLaughlin, would you like to say, do you think these are too much or too little? Or is your reference more about other items, which would be a topic for another time?
Well, it's a very long list. And,
Are you on page 60 and 61?
oh, okay. 60, sorry.
Yeah, no
You're
problem.
way ahead of me. I was looking at the overall list. but,
Understood, yes.
See that? This just pertains to this particular, matter.
Mhm. Yeah,
So, you've already heard my comments on that, so I'll pass it.
okay, thank you. Okay, council, this is before us for 3 readings. Motion from Councillor Toth, seconded. Is there a seconder for Councillor Shepherd? All in favor of? Opposed? Councillor McLaughlin opposed. For second reading, if you wish, Councillor Rowe, Councillor Toth. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor McLaughlin opposed. And for third reading, Councillor Shepherd, Councillor Bell. All in favor? And opposed, Councillor Toth, Councillor McLaughlin. Okay, thank you, council, and thank you, Mr. Nyhouse, for that. Yep. We can then move to page 3 of our agenda, item 10.1, which relates to Green Court. I see Mr. Coverwitz is with us. Council, do you have you have a microphone over there. I'm learning these things.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
May I ask, is Mr. Coverwitz on camera?
I don't have a presentation for you tonight. I'll just briefly speak to the item as an introduction, but this is an amendment of a housing agreement covenant that was registered on title as part of the Green Court rezoning. And due to a number of changes in the scope of the project, changes in the budgeting, the number of units that are able to be achieved at this point are less than the minimum amount required in the covenant as it was registered. And staff are recommending at this time that council authorize us to amend the covenant to remove the minimum unit count and allow the Green Court project to proceed as currently proposed, which is 94 units rather than the originally envisioned 104 units. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. So, council, what is your wish? Robert's rules would say we should have a motion before we can discuss this, so perhaps we'll. No. Okay, all right, a motion. Yes, yep. So, okay, a motion from Councillor Inkster to, in accordance with the recommendation on page 62. On my page numbers. Seconded Councillor Toth. All right, so discussion, who wanted to ask a question of staff first? Councillor Inkster?
Just a little more information through you to staff on the covenant, the original covenant rationale that was put forward with the limitations. I mean, I have to be honest with council. If they came forward with 90, I would support it because we need that project to go forward to provide additional housing. So, if you can speak to that beginning piece to what I said, Mr. Coverwitz, that'd be helpful. The original rationale for the covenant? of a higher amount.
You're speaking to the original rationale of the covenant in general, or the limit, or the minimum of 100?
The higher limit, yeah.
Mr. Kowitz, I think I can answer that.
Yeah.
It was, because that's what the applicant requested, and everybody was happy that they were going to be able to achieve 104. So nobody gave it any thought. You want 104, we're okay with 104, all in favor, and we moved on. Unfortunately, my understanding is that the applicant and the funding, the people involved in the funding, it's become more problematic, which has meant they've had to take one floor off the unit, or off the complex, unfortunately.
Yes, yes. I mean, the land has sat vacant for a number of years. So whatever we can do to facilitate the final building.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McLaughlin.
I live very close to, the property, and I do know people that do live at Green Court that are disabled and elderly. Originally, there were 28 cottages that were there, and they were demolished, and the Green Court Hall, which was their community building that they used a lot, and provided a lot of social support to them. That was demolished with a building permit and a demolition permit. So that means that the project was pretty much set to get a building permit. Now, I am in favor of just keeping it as it is and getting the 104 units, not reducing it, because I was actually quite concerned when I saw the attachment 1 that shows about the eligibility of units, and only, I believe, 20% of the units are for are deeply affordable to seniors that are very low income, and 30% of them are for what's called moderate income, which is up to 104,000 income for that applicant to live in one of those units. So to me, it's not providing the amount of, I think, really truly affordable housing that is really needed by this community. That was, I think, most residents assume is what that project is all about. So we can't change the past, but we can stick with what is on the books, and so I would not support reducing the number of units. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think the issue before us is that this is what the applicant has asked for. So we can reject it, to your point, but I believe the consequence of that is that there would be no project at this time. They would be going back to the drawing board.
Yes, and I would like to comment on any large project like this. Water is our number one concern.
Yep.
So any big project is going to be requiring water, and I would have liked to have some kind of reassurance again that this project has got water and sewage that is guaranteed for the longer term. And under our current emergency, I really can't see that happening. So for that reason as well, if it's delayed a bit while we can get some water, I don't see that as a bad thing.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Shepherd.
I just wanted to clarify Councillor McLaughlin's position that she's against the motion so that council should refuse to agree to the agreement.
Fewer units.
So to stop the project altogether. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I don't think it'll be stopped. I think it'll be delayed. But it's already been delayed. They demolished with a permit 28 units that people were living in that had to leave around 2018. So we've been waiting a long time anyway, believe me. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bell and then Councillor Inkster.
We have the numbers, do we not, in terms of what the cost is, in terms of if we build 104 versus 94. I think that's there somewhere. My understanding is that this project simply can't go on if there's 104 units versus 94. They can afford, or they had the funding to be able to build 94 units at this point in time. Is that the case?
The current proposal and amendment for the DP in front of staff is for 94 units. That's the proposal currently that they would be preparing for building permit.
Right, okay, thank you. And they have the funding at this point to be able to proceed?
That's my understanding.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Councillor Inkster, please.
Thank you. As most of council knows and a large part of the community knows, this is the Lions Society. And a number of years ago, when they knocked down the hall that was used by the Lions, knocked down the buildings that were one story that was rented out by the Lions, their plan was to build many more units by the Lions for people in need. And that's always been their intention. We've seen other projects in Seashelt be delayed or not go forward, so that can happen when there's economic and or cost challenges. But this is a group that is committed to building housing for our community. That's why they knocked down the original buildings. And as I said earlier, we need to facilitate the creation of additional housing units for those in need. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Rowe, one quick thing.
One quick thing.
And I quote.
I forgot what it was. No. I just want to point out that nothing has happened in the last 4 years because they needed to already go after more funding. And that took years of advocacy to get the funding that they just recently received to be able to move ahead at all with this project. So if we were to delay this again, it'll be coming back to us in 2 years when they've gotten some funding, and we'll be looking at building 75 instead of 94 because the costs will have increased. This is the Lions Club. This is what is before us. I do not support rejecting this ask. I will be voting in support of this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Any other comments? You ready for the question? All in favor of the staff recommendation to amend covenant, CA, etc., to remove section 2(i)(b)? All in favor? Opposed? Councillor McLaughlin recorded. Thank you. Yes. If I may, with council's indulgence, I think I'd like to suggest we just have a general agreement. We will record the negative votes unless take the other way. If you don't care to have it listed, let us know. Okay, the motion carries. Thank you. Now we get to the good stuff, says an accountant. The third quarter financial operating report. Ms. Smith, please.
Thank you, and good evening.
Council is on page 76.
Presentation. I think, thank you. So the purpose of this report is to provide council with an update on the financial activity of the district for the third quarter of 2022 and compare it to the same period of last year. The information provided in the quarterly budget variance report is a comparison of budget amounts to actual revenue and expenditures for operating departments. As well, an update on the district's projects and, the district's projects at the end of the third quarter of 2022. Nope. I think somehow, there we are. At the end of the third quarter of 2022, the operating revenues are at 97% and the expenditures are at 68%, which is comparable to 2021, sitting at 83% and 45% respectively. Those slightly behind in expenses, we expect to end at the end of the year on budget. The district receives most of its revenues at the beginning of the third quarter as property taxes, and a significant amount of user fees and sewer and solid waste are billed with the annual property taxes. License, permit, and fee revenues continue to track well in the third quarter revenue, where it's exceeding budget numbers. As well, we continue to see a strong revenue in planning service agreements. As mentioned, expenditures are tracking favorably against the 2022 budget. Expenses are on track for the third quarter of the year. Salary... Oh, I just died. Sure. I'm on the 6th slide. Keep going. Yes. Right. Thanks. Sorry about that. Salaries and benefits are on track to finish at the end of the year on budget, and salary and benefit expenses are currently sitting at 67% of the 2022 budget amounts. Salary variance, usually around this time of year, is mainly due to the hiring of vacant positions, timing of that, and further notes of the department expenses is provided in the quarterly budget variance report, which is attachment number 1 of this package. This table shows expenses compared to budget by government functions. These results are similar to the 2021 numbers for the same period. The district has 9 business segments, including the Sunshine Coast Community Forest, of which those results are available only at year-end. Included in the Q3 package is a capital and operating budget report, attachment 2 and 3, and these reports provide council with an updated status and a brief description of the project progress. The property tax statistics shows the number of folios per property classes that make up the property tax base for the district of Sechelt. The majority being 93% residential, then 5% business, and then the rest make up the additional or the final 3%. Though the number of the residential folios equate to 93%, only 85% of the total tax collected is residential. This is due to the multipliers on classes other than residential, and this means that the higher burden of taxation is on those classes other than the residential. In 2022, the residential folios increased by 20, and overall the rest of them increased by a net of 2. Total folio classes are 6,386, while total folios in the district is 6,191, and this is due to several properties having multiple classes. Overall, outstanding taxes in 2022 has increased 22% when compared to 2021, with both current and arrears showing as the majority of change. Arrears are trending upwards in 2022 when compared to the prior period, and you can see that delinquent is trending downwards. The current year outstanding is comprised of the 2022 unpaid taxes. Arrears are 2021 unpaid taxes, and delinquent is 2020 and older. Of the 1.2 million outstanding, 89% is residential. Thank you. That's the end of my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Great. Council, questions on? Yes, please, Councillor Inkster.
So just a refresher, maybe through to council and to the community, what percentage is the charge do we put on arrears? What's the interest that we put on arrears?
10%. We have 5% on July 4th or 5th, and then another 5% in September.
Okay, and this has went up probably has this changed with the interest rate changes, or has that just been?
Not that I know of.
Okay. Okay.
Director Douglas has comment.
So there's penalties, which I think Bev was talking about. So we have 10% annual, which is in the community charter. We split our penalties into two different penalty dates, and they're 5% each. On delinquent and arrears taxes, there's interest that also accrues on that. And I think that's part of the question that you were looking for. Yes, it started out earlier in the year, somewhere around 6%, maybe high fives, and now it's moved up to closer to 7%.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks. Other questions? Councillor Shepherd, please.
Do you expect that trend to accelerate? If we are moving into a recession, is it going to get worse? How does that compare to like a 5-year or 7-year average? Thanks.
Are you talking about the outstanding taxes? Yeah, outstanding taxes is kind of a wave. During COVID, it was a little higher, and then it went down last year, and now it's trended up again this year. But it's really a wave, like it's kind of year to year overall. Yeah.
I'm not sure if to direct it at you from me, Mr. Douglas or Ms. Smith, but on balance, then we're going to end up the year you expect pretty close to budget, albeit perhaps not spending quite as much on capital projects.
With regards to
the global picture.
Yeah, we'll definitely have some capital projects that will be carried over to next year. Operations you never end exactly at zero, so usually there's a small surplus. We've experienced, small surpluses over the last couple of years, and so that's really what we're expecting overall.
And I will point this out before Councillor Toth or Councillor Rowe. This year includes an element of taxation that goes into the capital fund for future capital renewal. Right? 3%.
3% per year?
Yes.
Good.
Please.
I may a cumulative 3%.
Thank you. Just a super quick one, because we've got, the third quarter financial report here. Last committee of the whole, we had the planning department present. I'm wondering when we get to see finance. Thanks.
Next, we get the committee of the whole of a short report on the budget process. And so you'll see when we sit down for our first budget meeting, we'll do a budget 101 and finance kind of 101, along with describing the reserves we have, capital, how it's funded, and how a project gets moved, that's approved in one year gets moved to the next year. So it would be at the first budget meeting that we start seeing more about the finances.
Councillor McLaughlin, please.
I was just wondering if there's any idea for the facilities we have of what the facility condition index might be.
So I don't know about a facility index, but I'm assuming you're talking about the condition of all our
facility condition
buildings.
Yeah, primarily.
There's a range. Recently we received a grant for the which is it? Rockwood Lodge. And, it is being upgraded as we speak. I know the Seaside Center has had some internal improvements to it, and it is also in relatively good shape. This building has some issues with it. We have just some water issues that we're gonna have to start dealing with this year, which is included in the budget for this year. And, we have a couple other buildings that we own, probably with unknown condition. We also have the RCMP and Justice, building there, and, overall, they're in good condition. We've, put a partial roof on the RCMP building this year, which was needed. And, we do have a condition report on the roof on the Justice side, and it also needs some attention, so.
Yeah, for asset management, I guess this will be further detailed, in terms of capital planning.
Yeah, asset management, I can let Director Dillon talk a little bit about that. We're in our infancy of putting that all together, but I'll let,
Yeah, thank you. Through your worship, if I may, provide some more information. So I believe it was just last summer that, council officially adopted an asset management policy. Prior to that, about 6 months earlier, we hired an asset management and GIS technician. Right now, we're going through all the process of inventorying and doing condition assessments on the myriad of assets that the district owns. That's from roads to buildings. So we're compiling that information. We're in the process of doing that. And some of the information that Director Douglas has spoken about will go into those asset report cards. So what we're hoping to do, and you'll see this with the upcoming budget, is the first step towards creating asset report cards for all our asset classes. So what we're hoping to get to is, say for roads, we'll have a dial gauge that will go from, very good to poor, and somewhere along that dial gauge, you'll get an indication of where our assets are at. It's I've said this in past presentations about asset management, but it's kind of a marathon. It's not a sprint, and we've very much started that in the last year. Thank you.
Thank you. Please.
So if our buildings are in relatively good condition, that we're very fortunate because, across BC and Canada, but especially BC, we have a lot of older buildings, and that's a big part of the budget that would be part of the planning, is to try and upgrade those seismically and other ways. So no community buildings, like community halls or anything, are part of our list of assets?
Yes.
Like, which one?
If we own them, they're part of our assets.
we do have a couple of, so we have the Seaside Center.
Yeah.
We have the Mission House.
Right.
We also have a property that is leased to us in Davis Bay, and it's up to us to maintain that. It's where the hospice is located.
Okay.
And
not the Davis Bay Hall.
Kirkland, yeah.
Not the Davis Bay Hall, right.
No, and then we're just building a public works facility now. So we don't own a lot of buildings, no.
Right.
Oh, and the WRC, or Water Resource Center.
What about for emergency preparedness? Is there anything
So,
in the works?
Councillor McLaughlin, I think those are some of the questions we can deal with, perhaps offline, because they're more topics that you might like to introduce.
Once we get your little gathering, a meeting where we get the lowdown from, we're just coming in as new councillors, so sorry about if the questions are a little vague. I just had a couple of questions in the actual report that you had.
Can you provide page numbers
yeah, I'm trying to see them here.
Thank you.
It's hard to scroll on the computer, so. Well, I guess one of them was the Wakefield Lift Station. I wondered in the budget for that if...
What page number, please? Down right in the center at the bottom, under your right hand.
Yeah, I know where the page numbers are, just finding that particular item. Do you know where it is? I can't spot it. Oh, probably here.
Big spreadsheet.
So attachment to, I can't even read that page number.
My computer says it's page 90.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
So there it is, $1.2 million. I just wondered for that cost, if part of that would be paid later, as, cost charges by developers. DCCs, yeah.
Mr. Dillon, is that?
Yeah, so in order for it to be, eligible under the DCC, for DCC, cost charges, or, it would have to be on the part of the, DCC project list. And so, generally, for those projects, they're addressing growth in the community. And so a portion of Wakefield Lift Station would be for replacing an existing asset that's already there. So that's replacement, that's not, for the growth of the community. So if there's a proportion of that that's related to growth, that can be claimed, but not the whole project.
So some can't be, related.
Yeah, I don't have the DCC project list in front of me, but if it is, certainly.
But this would be also part of why we are building this capital reserve, because we have to replace assets over an ongoing, over many years, so to maintain the current standard of living for our existing homes.
Right.
Councillor Inkster?
Yeah, I think I mean, we talked about it last week. It's gonna be bigger this time, that, build, and there's latecomers, so that may be part of the plan.
If I may, in the DCC bylaw, Wakefield Lift Station is eligible for $450,000 in DCCs. And in addition to that, we did receive a grant, from the provincial government for this project. The funding is there.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, yeah. Any other questions, Councillor McLaughlin? Any? No? Okay, great. Nope. Okay, so that was, thank you for the report, which was given to us for, information. So, you guys okay? We don't even do a receipt motion? Good. Like this. All right, we'll move on to item 10.3 then. Water Resource Center Modular Chemical Storage Loan.
Thank you. I had a presentation, but I won't show it. I'll just give you the high levels from the report.
Council did have the benefit of a tour last week where, the Water Resource Center manager was very eloquent in describing and showing us what was planned, and so.
Perfect,
yeah.
Thank you. The purpose of this report is to receive council's approval to secure short-term borrowing for the 2 WRC modular chemical storage units. Back in June of this year, a request for proposal was issued for the new modular chemical storage units, and the district received one quote that both met specifications and was within budget. Qtrex, I think I pronounced that correctly, Environmental Inc. was awarded the contract in the amount of $217,170. The budget for the project was $350,000, and the estimated construction budget to complete is just under $300,000, which provides a contingency of $55,000. The interest rate used to calculate the loan was 4.14%, which will change with market, and today I looked at that rate and it's 4.33 for the variable loan. Today, the total annual payments will be around $66,000 a year, and the interest for the term of the 5 years will be at $32,600.
Great.
Thank you. That's the end of my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks very much. Councillor Shepherd.
Sorry, just a small point. Why a variable loan?
It's a short-term loan through MFA. It's a variable rate.
But I don't think MFA provides fixed-term loans, do they?
Not for short-term.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'll take that one step further. Why not just pay for them and not borrow?
So the sewer reserves are not large enough to just pay that outright.
Really?
Through the budget process last year, we had identified borrowing as the source of funding.
Right.
And the council approved that at that time, as the source. And, yeah, and so the reserves just weren't sufficient to pay that outright.
Okay, and follow on to that, then, the limits that we have on borrowing, by borrowing this amount, we are very limited in what we can borrow at the $50 per.
Yes, if I may, through the chair, the municipalities are allowed to borrow short-term or long-term. There is a cap on short-term. The cap is $50 times your population. So that number for us would be, like, out of all our short-term loans, would be just over $500,000. And with this loan, it would bring us up to very close to that number.
So if we need any money short-term, this is boxing us in.
Yes, this is, yep, but every year we pay off principal. So although we may be close to $500,000 this year or right now, after next year, we'll probably be down around $400,000.
Councillor McLaughlin, sorry.
Sorry, all these projects seem to be in my neighborhood, so I have a lot to say. But I'm just wondering, for this particular storage of materials, is that material toxic or soluble or at risk of, in any way, because it hasn't been stored outside before and now it will be? And I just want to make sure the community is protected and there's no risk for them.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So these modular storage containers, they're used across the country, and they have to be built, in accordance with WHMIS standards, so hazardous material handling. I believe some of the materials that will be stored in there are things like liquid coagulants for the treatment process. They're not highly volatile. There are air ventilation units attached to that, and there's double containment built into these containers. So, and they're resistant to combustion, so that's very important that they're made out of metal so that they're not susceptible to fires or anything like that. So what we have selected is meets all the safety requirements we're looking for. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think it goes without saying, but please confirm, this proposal is in accordance with WorkSafe regulations.
Yes, and I can confirm later, but I'm sure that the building inspection folks are looking at this as well before it gets installed.
Okay. Councillor Inkster and then Councillor Toth.
Yeah, thank you. As you've indicated, we have to do this. I'm comfortable with the loan and its declining balance, as was explained by our finance officer. And in terms of our overall debt, we are quite low. So, as a municipality, so I'm comfortable with this route. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councillor Toth?
Thank you. Looking at the minor site preparation, the electrical that isn't Quatrax, anchoring and placement of the units, basically the things that aren't Quatrax, is that something that we have to put out to tender? Is that something that we're going to be able to handle in-house, or is Quatrax supplying the full installation? Thank you.
Through your worship, those are detailed project details, so I will go back to the project manager for that and try and find those details and come back to council with that. Thank you.
Oh, my microphone's still on. I was just going to say I'm happy to move the recommendation as presented.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Toth. Second, Councillor Inkster. Okay, any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor of the recommendation to finance up to $300,000 for the modular chemical storage unit? Unanimous. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to the fun stuff, I believe. Is that council reports now? Good. So, council, some of you are new and some of you have done this before. The challenge for the mayor is who gets to go first and who has to go last. So today, not being very creative, I thought we'd start on our left. Councillor McLaughlin, anything you want to, I promise I won't surprise the same person 2 meetings in a row. Yes, please, yeah.
I haven't committed to a lot of appointments because I was also hoping that we would have some other committees that kind of come up that are select committees or standing committees to do with planning, or I guess now we have this task force. So, and I'm also involved in the community and other organizations, so I'm just seeing how things go. And hopefully you can see I have a lot of homework when issues come up in my neighborhood anyway, so I've been quite busy with that lately, so that's what I have this week. Thank you.
Thank you.
You can find me at the rec center taking Aquasize.
Councillor Inkster.
I now know where to find her. The last few days, we've been busy, although the appointments just came out this evening, so as we go into the end of the year next year, there'll be more to say. I have been at the regional district over the last couple of days with some other council members to get a rundown and an overview of the regional district. Those are quite long days, but I did want to mention on that issue that people know what the regional district does generally, but I just want to speak to the emergency issue and the fact that many of their staff are on that issue, and that's an indication of sort of a burden that they're carrying with a lot of their regular staff working on not the regular work, but on the emergency issues of the water. So hopefully we can create solutions over the next number of months so that their staff can get back to their regular work. Last evening, while council was at SCAF, a number of them, and I wasn't sure if I was to be there at SCAF. I wasn't clear on the who goes. I was at Track instead, and in Roberts Creek, and just talking to the people that talk about alternative forms of transportation, listening to some of their ideas. They have a lot of good ideas. And the good thing about Track is that as we know, their alternative transportation means that they don't create GSGs. So, the global warming stuff. And so I like a lot of their ideas, and also pays to mention that most of the alternative forms don't create potholes. So so I was glad to hear some of their ideas at their group, and I hope that when they come and speak to us and make proposals, that council gives those ideas due consideration. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Inkster. You rode your bicycle here tonight?
Well, yeah, I would have been later.
Councillor Toth, please.
Thank you. We've been doing orientation and facility tours and as a group. Met with hospice at Kirkland House last week. That was last week. Mm-hmm. That was the first time I'd actually been to that building. It was really cool to see what they've done there and how enthusiastic they are about the programming that they do provide. And then, of course, we had SCAF last night. Holy smokes, the days are getting away from me already. It's been a lot of days of orientation. So SCAF was great. You were the only one not there, Councillor Inkster, so, but you were at Track, so that's good too. And, no, it was good. It was a good turnout. Yeah. Almost all the community associations were there. Right. And, that's really all I got. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. Councillor Rowe?
Well, what he said, it's been a busy 2 weeks, for sure, besides the orientation and the SCAF meeting and the hospice meeting. I attended the housing fair on Saturday, which was phenomenal. They think they had about 300 people come through. Thank you, staff who gave up their Saturday to spend time there. It was very well attended, and they lost track. They could only count how many people they had by how many coffee cups they went through. It was so packed. So it was great to see lots of interest. The other really cool thing that Councillor Toth and I attended was the Regenerative Farm Society that they have partnered with Seashell Nation, that they're reclaiming in some ways, yes, reclaiming the land behind the hospital and regenerating the soil, and they're making plans to farm that. And the hospital is going to be able to use the food. They have a partnership with VCH and the nation to see how far they can get in 3 years and review it at that time. So it's a very, very exciting project. There's been lots of good coverage on it, so that was really exciting to see. And the other thing that Councillor Toth hasn't talked about, and I'm going to be shameless, but he and I have started a podcast, and it's hilarious. We've done 3 episodes, and you can find it wherever you listen to your podcasts. So be it Spotify or whatever. Let me tell you, we are talking all things local government, not just necessarily about the Sunshine Coast, but what it's like to be in. We're going to try and humanize it a little bit to sort of give people a bit of a lens of what some of the experiences that we have. That's it.
There'll be a fee for that commercial.
Exactly.
We didn't name it.
Oh, it is quite interesting, actually, I must say. It's quite amusing.
It's called Locally Speaking.
Oh, it's called Locally Speaking. Yes. Thought I'd add that plug as well. That'll cost you big time. So I'm very excited about what's coming up. I'm going to be on a number of committees, and I also have the great opportunity to see some of the things like the hospice and a number of organizations in my role with our MPs. So it's wonderful to be able to be a part of that as well. I was part of SCAF. Now, I'm going to not use an acronym because I'll tell you, acronyms drive me crazy. It's Sunshine Coast Community Association. Is that right?
No, Community Association Forum.
That's what it is. That's what I really meant, actually. That's why we use acronyms. But that's what it stands for, and that's why I never use the acronyms. But it was wonderful. There were so many community associations here last night. In fact, all of them were represented, except we think one small group. And I haven't met them, but it was wonderful to connect with people. They were very, very candid about what some of their issues are. And to me, they really are the heart and soul of their communities and the ears and the eyes. So I really enjoyed that and meeting with them, and look forward to having a liaison that will meet with them regularly. Thank you. I won't use it.
Councillor.
I'd just like to ask how many people are registered for the podcast?
I'll have you know we have 28 followers. Thank you very much.
That's up 3 since 2 weeks ago.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. I wasn't sure what I was going to be assigned to, so I did have an informal meeting with the track, some of the track people. They're really looking to have developed cycling links to sort of link all the communities in the Sunshine Coast, and it would be fabulous for tourism. So I'd really like to see them come before council as well. I had an informal, I sort of shadowed the last library board meeting, and they are on budget this close to the end of the year, so that was good news. A few building issues with 2 of the walls, so they're looking into that further. The last book fair of the year is coming up this weekend. Please, everyone, come and spend your money on books to support the library. And lastly, the SCAF meeting, which was terrific. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. For me, a couple of comments with your indulgence. First of all, it was a pleasure today to attend with Councillor Shepherd, the Métis Cultural Awareness Week, where we hoisted the Métis flag on the flagpole over by Seaside Centre. That was attended by Terry and George Goulet and Roger Lagacé and Cindy Lee, as well as many kids from the French school, l'École du Pacifique. One of the great treats of this job is to be able to spend a bit of time with people like that. I guess the other big thing in the last 2 weeks, I've signed 4 formal documents, 2 states of local emergency and 2 orders. I don't think I had to do that once in the 3 years that I was in before. So we're very much in different times. All of these relate to the potable water situation on the central part of the southern Sunshine Coast. And I want to just remind everybody how vitally important it is that we continue to reduce our consumption. We have to, and we do everything we can to identify leaks. That is both within the mains, which the SCRD is working on, and of course in our homes. And your neighbors, if you find water flowing, it's coming from somewhere. Hopefully it's underground water, but maybe it's a leak. On that, something I wanted to ask of staff, I'm sorry I meant to mention this earlier today, but I'd really like us to assess what water usage we're using at the Water Resource Center. I know we've been at different times been able to use our well water, and other times it's been potable water. But even if it costs us a bit of money at this point, we must do everything we can to reduce that to the absolute minimum. And we also need help from Mother Nature. We need rain. I think most of you, it's been in the media that the rain that the little we've had is falling as snow up in the lake, and snow in the lake is unlikely to melt until next spring. So we don't have water in the lake, and therefore we need rain. We need the rain when it comes down to fill the Chapman Creek below the dam. The example used by the Emergency Operations Center Director, Remco Rosenboom, is it's like a sponge. We need enough water to fall slowly so that it can be absorbed into the ground and be essentially available to come out over the next several months. I think situation highlights that it's also vitally important for us to identify additional sources of water, something that I've been very vocal on. And unfortunately, it's even more urgent from the briefings we've had this week. So camera, thank you. It's right there. So I think, you're going to hear from us, both at the RD and perhaps from council in the next 2 or 3 weeks on some options that we have. We simply must do this, and we must embrace the challenge and get on with it. I'm also proud that the SCRD board yesterday voted 5-3 to support the installation of ice at the arena. And I want to compliment a number of people. The SCRD staff put in a lot of time to make this possible. We were up there today as part of our orientation, and the ice is started. They jumped on it. The arena staff, one fellow looked like he'd rolled in white paint. For those who don't know, you put a layer of water down, then you paint the water after it's frozen, and that's why ice surfaces are white. Hopefully it'll be done by the middle of next week, and that's a big win. I want to thank the town of Gibsons and Mayor Silas White, who stepped up to offer water to essentially supplement the water that we need to use as potable water. It's about 80,000 liters, which is 1% of one day's water usage on from the Chapman water system. After that, all being well, we'll take advantage of donations from our business community and the sports community to hopefully truck non-potable water, or maybe just use a well that is near the arena to maintain it through the winter. But again, I wanted to just take more time than normally I would allow any of us in these comments to acknowledge the great work that's been done in the last 10 days to get this to where we're at, and thank everybody that's been involved in that. And that is my part of the council comments. And see, if I do this, nobody can see me. Read your script, though. There we are. So thank you for indulging me in that, Council. Move on to the Council correspondence, and I believe this first is, well, perhaps help me here, one of you experts. What do we do with Mr. Weiler's recommendation or call for applications? I think this is to publicize to the community. I encourage you, please, Deputy Corporate Officer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, this provides council with an opportunity to reflect on the letter from MP Weiler, as well as potentially refer it to other community groups or organizations if they wish.
Great. Yes? Yes? Somebody want? Yeah. Okay. Okay, go for it.
Was this sent to the school district?
Sorry, we need to be a little bit careful here because,
I'm asking Carrie Ann if she
right.
knows. Are you aware if it's been sent to the school district?
I'm not certain of that, where the letter was distributed to. This copy was just sent to our council. However, we could certainly distribute it, forward it to them at council's discretion.
I would make a motion that we do that.
Okay. Is there a seconder for that motion? Okay, any discussion? All in favor of forwarding it to the school district? Carried. Okay, thank you. I think part of having it on this is also that it's simply in our agendas, people hear about it, and maybe even some of our staff have students that would be interested in signing up. We'll move on to the second item, which is the Fire Smart grant application, and looking for a letter of support. Not sure is there anybody on staff that would like to offer anything more than we read? Nope. Councillor Toth, it's your mouse. You're getting ready. Councillor Rowe?
Oh, I'm still on, so I guess. Yeah, 1,000%. This is, we've talked so much lately about emergency preparedness. I totally support sending a letter of support. So I will move this recommendation as stated.
I guess it's, you want to recommend that we'll send a letter of support.
That's right, that we'll send a letter of support.
Go ahead. Yes.
And that the Sunshine Coast Regional District is providing grant management, because that is stated in the letter as a requirement, that our resolution identifies that.
Okay.
Okay, Councillor Inkster.
So that was accepted. Mover, what Councillor Toth proposed, I'm assuming, and then I'll second it.
Thank you very much. You okay? Yeah.
Yeah.
So essentially, we sending a letter in accordance with, as requested in this correspondence. And you're okay with the mayor signing that without further oversight by
the deputy?
Or,
yes.
Or by
Please sign this letter of support, and we shall make sure that it reads that they will provide grant management.
Thank you. No. I suppose substantively, and this is more background, does anybody know, how does this impact Sechelt? Is any of this work being done within Sechelt?
Fire Smart is a program that is overseen by the regional district on an annual basis. Residents of the district of Sechelt are eligible to apply to have the Fire Smart coordinator come out and do an assessment of their property. I believe there is also funding available to help with actual fuel management on private properties as well through this program, which is managed by the regional district.
Great. Thank you. Good to have old guys around. I'll call the question. All in favor of the letter being sent? Carried. Thank you. I was coached to ask if there's any remaining items to come before the meeting. Mr. Yates, any emergency items? Then seeing no further items, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Councillor Shepherd.